Good day, everyone. It might be morning, might be evening, depending where you are in the world. It's Jim Norris from Backstage at Cider, and we're very lucky today to have with us a rising star, I guess I would call her. I see her name more every day, Paula Letang. How are you
Hi.
doing?
I am great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great as well.
Excellent.
So, I read your bio and went through your all your social media, your website. So I've got lots of questions. You were born in Dominica?
Yes, it's Dominica, actually.
Dominica, okay.
Yeah.
And
I know sometimes
where is
people
that
get
exactly?
confused. Dominica is in the Caribbean, depending on how you wanna say it, and, it is between, Martinique and Guadeloupe,
Oh,
within that area there, as well as Saint Lucia is very close. It is a English-speaking island as well as a French Creole-speaking island, so
wow.
they have both on the island, and, yeah, it's all beautiful, palm trees, it's beautiful. It's very much a nature island. It's called the nature island of the Caribbean,
That's great.
mainly because they keep it really beautiful nature. There isn't a whole lot of, North America style, Holiday Inns and all of those things. It's very, very nature. So if you're looking for that experience, to kind of get away from everything and get back to natural, that's where you definitely want it.
So how old were you when you moved to Canada?
I was about 5.
Okay.
Yeah, so my parents said, "Let's go." And so we did, and then we ended up, we I didn't end up in Toronto, ended up in St. Catharines, Ontario, so that's where I grew up. I went to, kindergarten, middle school, high school, all of that in St. Catharines.
Oh, that's interesting because I live in Niagara Falls.
Oh, that went there many times as well. Of course, oh goodness, the parks, of course, the falls. And it's funny because that's the place you always go when people visit. You're like, "Oh, the falls again."
I know.
But it's beautiful. I was just saying when you're a kid, you're like, "We just were there."
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good area. The whole Niagara area is really nice. A lot of wineries, great restaurants.
Mhm.
So it's a good place to live. So when you were young, did you have music in your family? What was were your parents supportive of you being involved in music?
I did have music in my family in the sense that my parents were about getting us into taking some sort of class, whether it was I mean, I took started off with the accordion, did a little because accordion is very, very, prevalent in the Dominican heritage culture with the it's part of the music,
Right.
so in terms of the traditional sound, and so I started off with that, but then I went to, the piano, and then I actually did guitar as well, so not that my parents took any of those lessons, it was just my brother and myself that were taking, music lessons.
And what type of music did your parents listen to?
Well, they were listening to, a lot of calypso out of the early, 70s. They were listening to, like, Mighty Sparrow and, a lot of those artists that came out of the Caribbean. I mean, it was they would have to get the records because, of course, there's no online. So, they would wait until they could get a record or somebody would send it or they were able to buy it somewhere, probably if they went to Toronto for a day or something,
Right.
where probably a lot of those stores probably had it more so than in St. Catharines, for sure. And so they were listening to a lot of that, actually, a lot of Caribbean music. I mean, my brother and I, we were definitely more listening to more than whatever was on mainstream, but certainly influenced by what we were listening to at home.
Right. So what radio stations would you have listened to in St. Catharines, Niagara?
I was listening to CHSC 1280, was it 1280, 1220? 1220,
Okay.
I think it was, 1220. I would listen to that, and of course, you would get all the mainstream stuff, um, from, I don't know, Styx to Helen Reddy, whoever was in the '70s, and you would get a lot of that, and then, but I was also listening across the border because, as you know, St. Catharines, not very far from Buffalo. So we
Right.
got a lot of the Buffalo stations, in particular, a station called WBLK, where at the time, it was heavy into funk music. I mean, it was Chaka Khan, Prince, it was, the OJs, you name it, they were playing and I was listening.
Excellent. That's great. So did you took lessons, piano lessons when you were younger?
I did. I did take piano lessons for about 2, 3 years. And then I then moved into guitar, which I took for a while. And was I doing the piano? Yeah, I was doing the piano when they had I don't know if they still have it now, the Kiwanis Music Festival.
I think so.
They do, yeah. So when they had that, and it was for all of Ontario, and so I went and was entered into that. My, teacher wanted me to go and do it. So my brother entered as well for guitar. He got first place, and I ended up getting second place for piano across Ontario. So that was kind of cool.
That's
I
great.
really loved it. I loved it, but we had to shift to guitar for some reason. But
Yeah. So who did you take lessons from in those days?
goodness, I was at the Walter Ostenick
Oh, yeah.
uh,
Music store.
music store, and then underneath, below, he had the studios. Oh no, that's where I was doing. Sorry, that's where I was doing the guitar. I did the guitar at Walter Ostenick,
Right.
but the piano was by a private person. He wasn't part of any studio or conservatory or anything like that, and he was the one. I'm not sure what his name was now, I don't remember.
Yeah, Walter Ostax is now part of Long McQuaid. It was
Was he?
yeah, it was bought quite a few years ago.
Oh, okay. I did
But
not know that.
but Walter's still going. He's still out playing and he's
Is he really?
in his 80s, I
I
believe.
thought that he had retired, to be honest with you. I
I
did
don't
not know he was
I
still
don't
out there.
think not sure he'll ever retire. He's going,
Well, if the music keeps you alive and happy, keep doing it,
that's for sure.
right?
So how did you get involved as a, serious singer-songwriter? How did that happen?
Wow. Yeah, because it wasn't really something that I was thinking that I wanted to it was in part something that I was thinking that I wanted to do. I mean, I knew when I was much younger that I did wanna do something within the entertainment field. I wasn't really sure what that was because I like to dance, I like to, sing, I like to play the instrument, every once in a while, pull out the guitar and grab a chord book and play, and, um, and I don't know, at some point I left it for a while, because we had moved from Toronto to Vancouver, and
Oh,
then we moved from St. Catharines to Vancouver, and we were there for about a year, so that was a little bit of adjusting and just trying to figure out where you were, and then we moved back to Ontario, so there was a little bit of a break in, not really being able to settle into really anything specific, and then I left the music kind of for a while. Maybe I would say 7 or 8 years? Really? I didn't really get involved in it at all. And then I met my husband in a band. And this band was a French Creole it was a French Creole calypso reggae band.
oh my god.
So and we ended up meeting there, and that's how I started to get back into the music scene because I'd been away from especially the Caribbean, energy for a long time. It was definitely into a lot more, I think, more disco, house music, that type of energy. So I got brought back into the Caribbean vibe and just because it is different. So you have to kind of learn that style, that vibe. And so we were with that band for a little while. And then we left that and created our own band called High Tension, which was strictly calypso reggae, and then introduced into it the music of the French Creole Caribbean called zouk and compa out of Haiti, because my husband is also from Dominica, and he brought that part that I didn't know to the table, and so I started to get involved in the zouk and the compa and the calypso and the reggae, and left the funk, soul, and R&B behind for many, many years. I was really involved in the zouk and the compa. It felt not that I'd come full circle, but that I had a more identity. Yeah,
Right, that's excellent.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, um, when did you start recording? How long ago was that when you did your first recording, and where was it? Where did you do it?
Yeah, so we had our very first recording. We decided, in around 96-ish that we were gonna create an album. So and this was going to be strictly Creole, French Creole, zouk. So we, went about writing. So I'd never really written zouk music either, so that was something new for me to do, and as well, speak in French Creole because that is not my first or any language, not my first at all. And so I just started learning some of the words. Not necessarily that I understood them all at the time, but I just wanted to be able to sing in it. It was important for me. So I started writing in it, grabbed the dictionary, the French Creole dictionary, and started to write the songs. And of course, with my husband being fluent, he could help me and correct a lot of that stuff. So around 96, we decided to do our very first album, which was called Nukaule, which is we are rolling. We are on our way. So, and we did that with a gentleman by the name of Bruce Scarrett, who has recently passed, but may he rest in peace. And he was definitely a big part of that album, Nuka Ule. That was the first one. We
Excellent.
then subsequently did another one, which we called Bayosa. And that one was released probably about 2 years later.
Wow, that's great. So,
Yeah.
what about, playing live? Do you
Mhm.
still do that quite a bit, or
Right now, we're not doing as much live with, the band. We haven't done a lot live for a little while. Of course, with the COVID and stuff, everything kind of, got quiet. But we may be thinking about coming back out with the French Creole. I mean, there really isn't a lot of it at all in Toronto in
no?
particular. Certainly, if you go out to Montreal, you'll get a lot of French Creole in terms of the compa bands and that are out there. But here, not so much. So, something to think about where it's not at the top of the list, but it's not off the list.
Right, that's great.
Yeah.
So, you're also involved in radio? Tell us about that. What's your
Yeah. That was by accident. Everything I seem to run into seems to be by accident. I don't know. That one came about because one of the students at TMU who's doing radio and television was actually also volunteering at the former CHRY 105.5 FM up at York University. And she said, they're looking for a show that they want to fit in between the 6 to 8 p.m. at the station because another show had left. And so, but they wanted something cultural. They didn't want just a, regular type of programming. They wanted something cultural. They did not have a French Creole program on the station. And so I suggested somebody else because I didn't do radio. It was not even, I wasn't, I wasn't interested, or I thought I wasn't. And then I found out that for whatever reason that didn't work out. The connection between the station and the other individual did not work out. Um, and I said, "Well, when are you guys going to be making a decision?" And it was going to be the following week on a Tuesday. So this was like a Thursday that I spoke to her. So the whole weekend, I put together with a few people a promo, gave it to her on the Monday. She submitted it on the Tuesday, and that Friday they called me and said, "Well, you've got a show
wow.
and you're gonna start in 3 weeks." I was like, "What? I don't know what I'm doing." So, that was a bit of a nerve-wracking because I had my own music, right? I had my own CDs and stuff like that, but I didn't have, in my opinion, enough to do a show every single week. Now I had to, look for the music, find the music. I mean, MP3s were around at the time, so that was good because you could get people to just send you MP3s, artists or whatever, and I could play them. But yeah, it was very by accident. For show, I didn't really say very much because I was nervous. And now you can't stop me from talking. And then probably by about the fourth show, I finally was like, "Okay," because I also didn't know the equipment. Like, I literally had 3 weeks to learn it, and I only was in the station twice prior to going live on the first show. So, yeah, it was, just throw you in there and figure it out,
A lot of
which was
things in
which
life
was
A lot of things about
Right?
like
And
that.
I think sometimes that can be the best way because you've gotta learn it. You've gotta figure it out because there really isn't a choice.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
don't have
you're
a chance to think about it and get too nervous.
right, right, exactly. So I did the 2-hour show for about 15 years.
Wow,
Yeah,
great.
promoting French Creole Caribbean music. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And, you've also been involved in event management, I guess you could call it?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I've done a lot of event managing. I mean, right now we've got the Toronto Funk and Soul Festival, but prior to that, when I was in my doing a lot of the French Creole stuff, of course, it was managing the band and getting the band to the different festivals and, sending the music out to, wherever we need to send it. So it was managing that. Also, at the time, I was doing the website. So I was managing that as well. And then also at the same time, we had two festivals with the Harborfront Center, and that was revolved around the French Creole community. So we had a community members that were part of that and just coordinating bands coming in from St. Lucia, coming in from Haiti, coming in from Montreal, and then, of course, the local group. And then we also did a hot and spicy festival that which had to do with the food of the French Creole Caribbean islands. So there was a lot of coordinating in that, and then also then coordinating with the Toronto Funk and Soul Festival with Met Radio, which is where my show is. And then, yeah, just coordinating all of that, getting the bands, getting them to submit stuff, and getting a committee to review, and so it's but I think it's a lot of work, but if you just take your time and go through one thing at a time, it doesn't feel as overwhelming as it probably sounds.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when is your next event happening, taking place?
For the festival, we're thinking this year of probably just doing a smaller event, maybe just a DJ, whatever. That's still in discussion whether that'll be this year or next year, but hopefully within the next year, we'll be able to announce or say something.
Excellent.
Yeah,
And, you have a new single that just came out in the last little while?
I do. The single is called Giving You More, really just about letting go and just giving more of yourself and just trusting that process. Because
Oh,
that can be hard sometimes.
well, that's for
People have
sure.
been burned. Just you're like, I'm not doing this again. And then all of a sudden you find yourself at that point where are you in or are you out? And
Right.
then you've got kind of make up your mind,
Excellent.
decide. Yeah.
So
So,
how do you balance your professional life with your personal life?
well, there's a balance.
Well,
Let's
I
There's one.
interviewed Jason McCoy, the country artist, and he said it's just a train wreck is what he said.
I might have to agree with him. I try to schedule myself in and say today because I also while I'm doing that, I'm also preparing the radio show, right? So
Right,
that also takes some time to get your song list together, to put all of that together so that you're ready for your show. So it's not just you're doing the show. It's the show starts long before you're doing the show.
right,
So I try to coordinate and say, maybe Monday, Tuesday, I'm working on the radio show. Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, I might, it switches around, but I look at the week and I say, this is what I'm doing for the week on these days so that it doesn't feel like I have to do everything all at once.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's
And
helpful.
if you had, um for an upcoming singer-songwriter, somebody who's just starting out, and you mentioned TMU, there's all kinds of young people there that are just starting their career. What advice would you give them if you could, sort of go back in time and say what's that?
I would say, don't be afraid of yourself.
Right,
I think that a lot of the time, well, not everybody. I mean, some people are just, very, very into themselves,
right,
and you can't be too into yourself either because then you get lost in your own hype, and that can be a huge problem. I would say, and if you do have somebody that you appreciate as an artist, don't try to be them. Don't be them. There's already one of them.
right,
You can look at what they're doing and appreciate it and maybe, put it into your act or twist it around a little bit, but try to be as individual as possible. I think too many clones, you just get lost in the mix. So you really have to find a way to stand out, and I think the best way to stand out is to be yourself.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's great advice, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Best in your various careers, and uh, yeah,
They'll keep me busy for sure.
yeah, that's good. Alrighty, take care.
All right. Maybe I would also want to say that if people want to find me, especially if I'm doing the Funk and Soul radio show, they can find me on Met Radio. I'm there Saturday nights, 7
Oh,
to
great,
9 p.m. The show is all about the funk and also on Instagram. Usually I'm on Instagram at Paula Letang.
excellent. So just
Thank you.
a Google search will do it.
That'll do it. You'll find me.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Okay, take care.
Bye.